So we are going to start heading closer and closer to the Civil War, which is where we end first semester. And we're going to, in this section, talk about both unity and sectionalism. So the key terms are sectionalism and the Missouri Compromise. This is a very short presentation, only about 6 slides, so we're just going to cruise around. We're going to start with the era of good feelings. After the War of 1812, the Federalist Party disappeared. They had been challenged, not knowing who they were loyal to during the war, and they just kind of disappeared. James Monroe in 1816, therefore, becomes the president, and political differences faded away, causing what we call the era of good feelings. Monroe, unlike other presidents, toured the nation. He paid his own way, and he tried to travel most of the time without an official escort. He wanted to see the people without really being known. Sectionalism starts to grow. These are regional differences that came to surface. Now, most Americans, I know I do, feel a strong allegiance to the region where we live. This is sectionalism. You're loyal to your region. At the time period, people would call themselves Westerners, or they were Southerners or Northerners. We still today talk about these people in these terms. The Southerners against the Northerners, and there were the Westerners. We don't classify them as Americans, but instead based upon where they lived. So sectionalism is that loyalty. Now, there were large differences in the different regions. For instance, slavery. White Southerners believed that it was a necessity. They had to have slaves. And they believed that slavery was a states' rights issue. Each state, the voters inside the state, should have the right to determine whether slavery was allowed or not. Northerners, however, increasingly opposed slavery. And if you think about it, Northerners are expanding, industrialized, and they're paying wages to workers. And in their mind, it is unjust that Southerners basically get free slaves. Yeah, you pay for them once. Whoop-de-doo. Wages are constant. Slavery, it's like cattle. They buy a woman and a man, and pretty soon they can raise their own little herd of slaves. Unfortunately, that's how slaves were treated, like livestock. So Northerners were increasingly opposed to it and claimed that it was a federal government issue. There were other issues, tariffs, which are taxes, and the idea of a national bank, internal improvements like roads. All of this argument came back to, was it a states' rights issue or was it a federal government issue? Well, this tension reaches new heights in 1820 over the issue of admitting new states. So you see, the state of Missouri the territory of Missouri had submitted their state constitution and wanted to be a state. This delicate balance was waiting. The South wanted to admit Missouri as a slave state. The North said, no way, that'll swing the balance of power in Congress to slave states. We want it to be a free state. The same issue came under Maine. Slave state or a free state. And the issue is power in Congress. Well, the Missouri Compromise, which is a key term, and I'll give you the definition, was signed in March 1820 that provided for the admission of Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a free state. We're adding one of each. At the same time, we keep the balance of power. But more importantly, the Missouri Compromise banned slavery in the remainder of the Louisiana Territory north of 3630. There could be no slavery any farther north. Now, Southerners, many have argued, well, why would the South agree to this? they didn't want to necessarily expand slavery. They just wanted to keep it where they were. They wanted to ensure that their slaves and this economic system based around slaves would be preserved. So by compromising and saying, okay, we won't expand anywhere north, they hoped to ensure that slavery would survive. We'll see if that works.